I just want to say it's a very important day today, and I particularly want to acknowledge Ministers Collins and Peters, and also the MP for KKM, Chris Penk, in his role as Minister of Veterans as well, and all the invited guests that are here with us today at the Whenuapai Air Force Base. But I especially do want to acknowledge the members of our Defence Force, whether here in person or actually out working hard on New Zealand's behalf. And the announcements that we're making today ahead of Budget 2025 will make it much easier for you to do your jobs, both domestically and internationally. You're being called upon to deploy more often, in more places, and for longer. And we're determined to equip you with what you need to do that job. So today's announcement follows the release of our Defence Capability Plan that we announced last month, and that follows a significant shift in this country's investment in its armed forces. I'll leave our excellent Defence Minister Judith Collins to share the firmer details of what we're announcing today, which are the very first steps in implementing the Defence Capability Plan. But I will say a few words about our upcoming growth budget and why investing in our Defence Force is so important in today's world. As I stood on the hills of Gallipoli just a couple of weeks ago, that old battleground at Chunuk Bair on Anzac Day, actually last week, I reflected on the 16,000 New Zealanders who came ashore there 110 years ago to fight for the Kiwi way of life that we all enjoy today. And it was a very, very stark reminder that yet again, our prosperity doesn't happen without security. Today, New Zealand is facing its most challenging and dangerous strategic environment for decades, and we are no longer living in a benign strategic environment. The risk of conflict in our wider region has risen, and we have to do our part internationally and domestically. We have to be able to pull our weight and be able to follow up our words with real actions. In a few weeks, our government will deliver a budget against a very difficult global backdrop. And in an uncertain world, our government is delivering responsible policies that provide stability, that support investment, and make New Zealand an attractive place for the world to trade and to do business with. Defence is one vital component of that picture, and that is why the government is investing so strongly in it. We're also delivering increased investment in the things that matter to Kiwis, like health and education, law and order, and business growth. The growth and prosperity of New Zealand will be at the heart of this year's budget. And because a growing economy supports employment and higher wages, it provides opportunities for families and it pays for the public services that New Zealanders expect and rely upon. This is going to be a responsible budget that secures New Zealand's future. What New Zealanders want is strong economic management in an unstable global environment. And that's why this government has been so focused on the economy since day one, and why we have the right economically literate political leaders in place for this time. Before I finish, can I just acknowledge the hard work of our Defence Minister, Judith Collins, and the unwavering support of our coalition partners, New Zealand First and ACT, in advancing our investment in the Defence Force. In particular, I just want to note Winston Peters, and in particular that it was New Zealand First that previously drove the procurement for our new P8 Poseidon aircraft and the new C-130J Hercules that you see behind us here. I'll now hand over to Judith to take you through some of the details of the announcement today. Thank you very much.
Well, kia ora everyone, and thank you Prime Minister, and welcome to everybody to today's pre-budget defence announcement. This is another big day for the New Zealand Defence Force, and as you know, early last month we launched the 2025 Defence Capability Plan, a multi-billion-dollar plan for a modern, combat-capable New Zealand Defence Force that can pull its weight domestically and internationally. Today's announcement is the first step in turning that plan into action, and it comes in two parts, with more to come on Budget Day. But today I'm delighted to announce the government will be going ahead with replacing the Navy's ageing Sea Sprite helicopters. This will increase the defensive and offensive capability and surveillance range for New Zealand's frigates, as well as supporting non-combat tasks like humanitarian assistance and disaster relief. A business case for these helicopters will be considered by Cabinet this year, but today we are confirming the government has put aside $2 billion plus to pay for them. The Sea Sprites, one of which is behind me, were built during the 1960s and 1970s, and they will reach the end of their service life in the late 2020s. We are a trading nation with a huge exclusive economic zone, and we need a naval aviation capability that can support New Zealand's defence, security and trade objectives. This includes conducting combat operations, search and rescue, and contributing to humanitarian aid and disaster relief. I'm equally delighted to share that the second part of our announcement today is that Budget 25 provides a $957 million investment in Defence Force activities, personnel and estate. This operating funding equates to $239 million a year over 4 years to invest in missions, people, estate and other activities. It includes $150 million each year for Navy, Air Force and Army personnel to sail, fly, patrol and train more often. $39 million for personnel allowances for such things as deployments, $20 million for international deployments, and $3 million to increase essential engagement with international partners. In addition, $26 million is being invested each year over 4 years in critical estate maintenance to improve accommodation and working and training conditions for our people. The reason for this investment is clear. Global tensions are increasing rapidly, but our current defence spending is simply too low and we have to rebuild the Defence Force. It's very clear that New Zealand is not immune from the increasing tensions being felt throughout the world. It's also very clear that we cannot have economic prosperity without national security. This investment is a very real recognition of the value we place in the men and women who serve and protect in this country and its interests, because defence is not something that we can be mothball until we need it. When something happens, you need a Defence Force that is ready and equipped to do whatever is asked of it, and it needs to be able to do that immediately. We're calling upon our people to deploy more often, in more places and for longer, and we're going to equip them with what they need to do that. Distance no longer provides New Zealand the protection it once did, and this government is showing real commitment to ensuring there is realistic and ongoing investment in defence. It shows our budgetary commitment to the Defence Capability Plan and the future of the New Zealand Defence Force, and it sets us on our path for defence spending to reach 2% of GDP in the next 8 years. I will have more to say on Budget Day on additional investment in critical capability for the New Zealand Defence Force, but today I can say that this is just the beginning as we work with our coalition partners New Zealand First and ACT to give our Defence Force the tools to enable New Zealand to increasingly step up both domestically and internationally. We will pull our weight, and on that note I'll hand over to our Foreign Minister and Deputy Prime Minister, the Right Honourable Winston Peters. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister, Prime Ministers Collins and Pink, distinguished Defence personnel and guests. It's a pleasure to be here for today's announcement. The Defence Minister and New Zealand First has worked hard to ensure the replacement of the Sea Sprite helicopters were brought forward into this budget cycle, this budget cycle's appropriations, which makes today possible. Apart from 2017 to 2020, when Defence Minister Ron Mark was able to secure $3.8 billion to procure the P-8s and new Hercules fleet, the last 4 decades of defence spending has been regrettably simply woeful. That has harmed our reputation with partners because New Zealand's substance on defence capability, that is, actual appropriations supporting procurement decisions, has never matched the promises many previous governments made, nor the rhetoric that flowed from those promises. Ladies and gentlemen, as the Minister of Defence just said, we have not been pulling our weight, so today's announcement is a start, but it is only a start. And remember, when there are crises in the Pacific, it is a military aircraft or a military ship that's gone to so much humanitarian aid, and there's so many though, we think we can have that capability without having it in the first place for its original purpose. Well, it shows our immediate intent and our seriousness of purpose. The best aspect of the Defence Capability Plan is the government's commitment to review it every 2 years. You can be assured that Through those reviews, the Defence Minister, I am certain, and New Zealand First will be pushing hard to get defence spending up to 2% much sooner. That is our commitment to you today, and thank you for the chance to remind you.
Thank you, Sir. The Prime Minister and Minister of Defence will now take questions.
Hey everybody, well I think you've probably heard from the three ministers where we are with the announcement, and with that, happy to take any questions you've got.
Minister, how many new helicopters are we getting?
I'll let Judith talk to that.
So that's 5, and at the moment we've got 5 operational Sea Sprite. We had 8, but 3 are cannibalised to keep them going. But we'll have 5 nice new ones.
And what's the rough timeline for delivery of those?
Well, that's all subject to, obviously the business case and when they're deliverable, and how long. But let's put it this way: as soon as we can do it for the right helicopter at the right time. So the Sea Sprites are due to sort of end service in the next few years. So it's got to be within those few years.
And that 957 million, can I just clarify? Is that a part of the 12 billion?
Yeah, so it's yes, it is. It's part of the cost that we've said we need to spend. Thank you.
How overworked are these choppers? I mean, are they racking up the hours at the moment?
Yeah, look, can I just say, we are brilliant. The New Zealand Defence Force has shown an absolute brilliance at being able to keep classic planes going forever. It's extraordinary. So yeah, these are overworked, all right. They're on ships. They're going out doing patrols. They're searching for people. They're doing all these sorts of things that you need. And we can do a lot with drones, but you can't pick people out of the sea with a drone. That's the sort of thing that you need the helicopters for. But it's also for any combat needs that might occur. Hopefully won't, but might. Very important that we replace these.
Minister, when you're looking at the next few years and keeping up the capability of the Defence Force, how much spending will go towards salaries and stemming attrition?
Yeah, well, we've sort of knocked attrition on the head. I'm pretty pleased to say. If I'm looking at the Navy, I think we're down to 6% or something like that at the moment. I've just put out some figures on it. It's unbelievable how that attrition has dropped. I am going to say, big promise, that while I'm the Minister of Defence, I'll never ask Defence to stand outside MIQ facilities and not do the job that they're asked to do in the first place. So that, I think, had a huge impact on them. So we're back to a normal rate across the whole regular force. It's just about 7%. So that's a healthy rate of attrition.
And Minister, you spoke now about the mission of rebuilding our Defence Force, so we will eventually pull our weight. How much time and how much money do we need to put in to get to that place where it is rebuilt?
Right,
Yeah.
okay. Did you want to...
Well, as we announced a few weeks back, we were going to put an extra $12 billion in the next 4 years, and our goal is to get to the 2% of GDP as quickly as possible. What Minister Peters just alluded to was the fact that we've got to have a review every 2 years. What's important here is that we've actually set ourselves a really good strategic plan for the next 15 years. And so it's not just about securing the money, that's an important part of it, but it's when we get the money, we actually are putting it into a good money's going into a good strategy to build good capability for the Defence Force. So we're on a time path to get to 2%. It may take, we'd like to review it every 2 years. If we have more money, if our economy is doing better, of course we'll tip more money in as we go. But for right now, given the degradation that's taken place, a lot of our focus is on getting our personnel in place and then obviously getting the new assets coming through the system.
Was there a particular particular world event that has sparked this investment?
No, it comes from a place of us as a new government, saying, look, we cannot have economic prosperity without defence and security. We're living in an Indo-Pacific region that is more geostrategically contested and competitive. We see rising tensions through the world, but also through our region. And it's really important. You don't just spout off with your values and your words, you've actually got to follow it up with some actions and some commitment. And our New Zealand Defence Forces are held in incredibly high regard by our partners, but it's important that they have the capability and the equipment to actually be able to execute and actually do the tasks that we ask them to do. And so you've seen us do some incredible work, working on monitoring UN sanctions over North Korea because of the P-8 aircraft that were funded through the New Zealand First Contribution in Defence. That's been well received by our partners, and it's been some amazing work that's taken place here. You're seeing the work that's taking place with the Hercules, which will help us with emergency relief through the Pacific and also here at home. And we want to make sure that our men and women have all the kit that they need to be able to execute the tasks that we ask them to do.
Have Defence Force chiefs been in your ear about what exactly they want to replace the ceasefire? Is there, a name of a job?
No, there's a very clear, transparent process that requires each of the investments we make in defence will have a cabinet sign-off on the business case. Then there's a very formal tendering process. Obviously, there'll be a range of options, probably 3, I suspect, in this case. But again, the defence procurement will work their way through what is the best, best aircraft, I guess, for the challenges and the tasks that we want to set it. And then obviously we sign off as a cabinet each of those business cases. So we'll work through those processes really as quickly as we can, but importantly we now have strategic clarity for the next 15 years about the capabilities we want to build into the Defence Force. And as Judith announced a few weeks back, that includes things where we think there is actually New Zealand defence companies that are now selling some products into other defence forces around the world. I saw one of them recently in England, and SIOS, it's selling unmanned uncrewed vessels. And we think there's a lot of innovation for us to get out of our own defence industry and actually build a defence industry in New Zealand as well. So it's a pretty exciting time, and having spent a lot of time with the Defence Force folk, as I know Winston and Judith do as well, and Chris, it's no wonder that they actually are seeing they've got a government that's backing them, that's actually going to make sure they've got the kit that they need, the resources they need, the bases they need to make sure that they can do the job we're going to ask them to do.
Minister, the New Zealand Defence Force has been in discussions in Europe in recent times with other European partners about what might happen in Ukraine. What's your current assessment as to the likelihood of New Zealand forces doing more than they are now in the European theatre?
Well, I want to be really clear. We have stood with Ukraine in an unwavering way for the last 3 years as this government, and we have issued sanctions against Russian actors. We've increased our funding through to Ukraine, but also importantly we've got NZDF personnel who are working with the British and other countries, have trained 54,000 Ukrainian soldiers. What we have to acknowledge is a small country at the end of the world with limited resources. We won't be the ones setting that peace plan. That's up for the Ukrainians to work their way through with Russia, with the US, with Europe involved in that. As we've said before, we're open for conversation around peacekeeping support, but first and foremost, let's not get ahead of ourselves. There's a real process to secure the peace first and foremost, and make sure there's a just and lasting and enduring peace that takes place. But those conversations are quite premature. Of course, any decision we make will come back to our cabinet and we'll make that decision together.
When you're looking at the extra money you've provided in the next few years, was in the back of your mind to what extent are you thinking we might need to do more than we are currently doing in Europe?
It wasn't specific around that. It was just a realisation that we have a set of values in New Zealand. We believe in the sovereignty of nation states. We believe in democratic ideals. We believe in the international rules-based system. New Zealand is an important country. We have an important role to play in the Indo-Pacific region. You've seen us step that up with myself, with Winston Peters and his work as Foreign Minister, Judith Collins as Defence Minister, and also Todd McClay as Trade Minister. The four of us are lifting the urgency and the intensity of all of our bilateral relationships, our multilateral arrangements. We know New Zealand has a lot to offer, but we also can't just talk the values and the words. We actually need to back it up with defence assets and security assets, and that's what we're doing.
The Foreign Minister, Mr. Peters, you mentioned in your comments feedback you'd had from overseas about New Zealand perhaps not living up to the words. Could you tell us a bit more about the messages you've received on your travels about what New Zealand should be doing?
No, it wasn't feedback, it was confirmation of my long-term view.
Minister Collins, could you provide some detail around the critical estate maintenance? 26 million a year seems a lot.
239.
It's a lot of estate, but also our people have had some pretty tough conditions to be working in, whether it's making sure that we have the right logistics facilities for them, whether or not it's the issues around the mess, but also dining rooms, the living conditions. It's going to take quite a lot of money over a long period of time to get those back up, and my colleague Chris Penk, as the Associate Minister of Defence, has been putting a huge amount of effort into those as well. So it's just going to be, it's very important to understand we have defence bases around the country for very good reasons. I remember many years ago there was a plan at one stage from a way previous government to close Burnham. Well, that was a suggestion, and that was just, imagine if we didn't have Burnham when the Canterbury earthquakes happened. The fact is we need defence around the country so that they can actually get to be the people that we work with and get to help us through very difficult times.
Has there sort of been some feedback of maybe some complaints across the bases across New Zealand, they haven't been up to scratch?
Oh, I think everybody knows that they're not up to scratch, but we've had some great progress. I mean, in Papakura, in my electorate, at the base there's been some great housing put in there. I mean, as in, when I say great housing, it's pretty basic, but it's good, it's clean, it's new, and it's warm. And this is the sort of thing that we need to do, just keep upping our game.
Prime Minister, what's your reaction to the Australian election result last night?
Yeah, look, I spoke to Prime Minister Albanese this morning. We had a good conversation. Suffice to say, I think his voice was a little bit hoarse after a rather emphatic win last night. But, you know, for us, you know, we are good personal friends, but also our two countries are allies and we are family. And so for us, it was about, you know, reassuring each other that we want Australia and New Zealand working together on the world stage, as you have seen our four ministers in trade and foreign affairs and defence doing so. And so we continue that great work. So, yeah, no, it was a pretty emphatic win last night. But again, I think it underscores what we're seeing in the elections in Singapore, but also in Australia and in Canada, which is that the public are voting for governments that actually have strong economic management in very unstable and uncertain times. And I have to say, this is a government, as you've heard me say from day one, that is focused on rebuilding our economy so that we can lower the cost of living and actually get money into people's back pockets. We take that very seriously. That's why we say that's the foundation of what we have to do. And I think when you see the quality of our coalition government cabinet, you see people who are economically literate and are the right leaders for the right time.
Are you also taking note, though, of the Trump effect?
No, I think the message really simply is that the publics around the world are voting for governments that actually have strong economic management in very uncertain times. And you know, these are economies, and every country's been through challenging economic times post-COVID, where people have high anxiety and have been dealing with, you know, the cost of living. But equally, these are uncertain times at the moment, as you've seen. And so what you're seeing is, as I said, in Singapore, Canada, Australia, the public voting for governments that have their eyes on the right things. And the right things for us is to make sure we don't take our eyes off economic growth. That's why you've heard me say growth, growth, growth. We keep talking economics and rebuilding the economy from day one. That's important.
Can I answer that?
Yeah, I thought you might.
Well, can I just say this? Look, our business is to understand how politics works, to read the room and understand what's going on in the real world, where our masters are, after all, the people and the voters. Yeah. So we sent a message to our counterpart in Canada well before the event, and to our counterparts in Australia, that's Richard de Miles, the Deputy Prime Minister, Defence Minister, and Penny Wong, well before the event, because it was a certainty. Learn to read the room when it comes to politics. Thank you. I got to go.
He's got to go to another meeting, but let him go. Yeah.
Just confirm one thing. I think you said at the beginning, but just to be absolutely sure, when you announced the plan about a month ago, and there was the 12 billion over 4 years and the 9 billion new spending, this 957 million today, is that, where does that fit in with that, just to be absolutely clear?
Yep, it's all part of that total spend, and what you're seeing is a pre-budget announcement. So the budget will confirm the $12 billion and the $9 billion of incremental spend, and what Judith has announced today is actually part of those funds. Yeah.
You also have an education announcement today. for various logistical reasons, we aren't able to go to it, but can you explain what happens exactly?
Yeah, look, what we're opening up is a parent portal for education. We want our parents to be partners in the education of their children. And so this is a portal where they can see, for example, a high-level curriculum laid out year by year, so they have a good understanding of what their child is learning through the course of a given year. But importantly also, it's got a lot of digital resources that they can actually use with their children at home. And so, we've got a really clear task on education. One is we need to get our kids in school, and I just say to every parent, grandparent, auntie, caregiver, uncle, whoever it is, get your kids to school. We're making some good progress there, but we need a lot more. And when we get them to school, we're teaching them the basics brilliantly, and that's particularly learning to do maths and learning to do reading through structured literacy. But the parental portal is designed to actually augment the work that's happening in the classroom so that can continue to happen at home as well. And I just encourage every parent to get on board and just check out and be aware of what their kids are supposed to be learning in the course of a given year, and more importantly what they can do to help support them do that.
Can I just pick up on Simon's question earlier? Do you think New Zealand's either international perception or reputation has been impacted because of the lower defence spend in the past? And if so, how?
Well, I think, let's be clear, we're doing this because we're acting in New Zealand's national interests. This is in our interest to actually step up our defence spending, because it's not enough to go to global meetings and spout off about the lovely set of values that we have without actually not being able to participate or action those values. And so for us, it's our own assessment as New Zealand leadership to say, look, as we look out into the environment, we see more contests, we see more tension rising in places around the world, and it's important that New Zealand can respond to that. And that's why we're making this investment. Judith's right. There's been a degradation of defence assets and forces over a long period of time, and what we're doing is we're starting to right that ship, and that's why the big investment in funding, but that's more importantly also why there's been some great work done by the heads of the different armed forces with Judith and with the Secretary of Defence to say we've got a great strategy for the next 15 years of where we want to build our expertise in defence, so that when we work alongside our Australian friends and family and our other partners in different parts of the world, we're interoperable and that we've got assets that can plug into that work as well.
But do you think there's been, and ask this question to speak, a degradation to New Zealand's reputation at all because of that lower defence level spending?
I don't think there's been a degradation per se, but I just say to you, I think our partners are very appreciative of us stepping up, and we're saying the calculation's pretty simple. It's no longer a benign environment. New Zealand has to carry its own weight. New Zealand has to be able to make its own contribution, we've been very intentional about making sure we're doing the right things with the taxpayers' money, but we're very, very confident in our plan, and we're very, very proud of the investment that we're putting in.
Just a quick follow on that, if I may, Prime Minister. President Trump has made it very clear that he called on his NATO allies to spend more on defence. Has there been any message from the American administration to New Zealand to do the same? Look,
no, we're doing this, as I said, out of our own national interest. Suffice to say, though, our partners, as we've been engaging with them at different points in time to understand where their defence strategy is going so that we can actually plug in and be complementary to that. Certainly we spend a lot of time with the Australians, for example, and thinking through how we can make our forces, as I've said from the beginning, interoperable. But, the feedback we've had from our American friends is they're very grateful and very thankful that we're stepping up our investment. But we do this because we choose to do this on our own volition, because we act in New Zealand's national interest, and this is what this is about.
I can also just mention, Prime Minister, that we started this work earlier than this time last year, so a long time before any change of administration.
Yes, good. Okay, any other questions, or are we good?
Just one.
Yeah, sure. Sorry, yeah.
No,
feel free, keep going.
Before we finish off, does the Australian election result sort of add or subtract from your confidence going into our own election next year?
Oh, look, I've been pretty clear from day one, which is if we deliver for New Zealanders in 2026, they'll make a very clear assessment of, do they think they've got strong and stable government? Do they think they've got leaders that understand difficult economic times and are commercially literate? And I think New Zealanders understand they've got a government that and leadership and a Prime Minister that is very, very focused on rebuilding our economy so New Zealanders can get ahead. And that's what they need right now, is they need responsible government, and that's what this is about. So, as I said, the message is pretty clear. It's you've got to have strong economic management in very unstable and choppy times and turbulent times. We have that with this government. There's been a relentless focus on the economy from day one, and importantly, you've now got leaders that are actually in place and a team in place that actually will make sure New Zealand gets through these choppy waters really well. Thank you.